We would like to hear about the origin story of this project. Why Brian Epstein and why now? How did you come to this? How did this project come to be?
I just got asked to do the gig because they thought I would bring a certain understanding, my background. I have some family in Liverpool, actually, as well. But also, you know, they felt that he was the unsung, hero of that story. And it was time. I mean, a lot of people have tried and failed. And some people have done kind of, versions of his, I think the film, there have been other short independent films, but he was due for a telling.
And when you say they, who was they?
The producers.
Uh-huh.
I was working with them on something else, Studio Pow, and then they said, would you be interested? And my husband is a devoted Beatles fan since he was 11 and saw them in Bournemouth. And so we were already obsessed, and I knew about him, and I didn't know about him like I do now, but yeah.
So, and Joe, how did you come to the project?
I was asked to do the gig, and it was kind of very easy. At that point, it'd been through a bit of a journey, and I came to it quite late, and so there was already the script, and there was already a few things that had gone on, and so yeah, I joined quite late.
There's so many creative challenges when it comes to making a biopic, and you so elegantly navigated, not making it mimicry, but catching the essence of things. When you went to cast it, like the Beatles, who was more documented, the Beatles. So how did you make the decision to choose those 4 people who, don't look exactly like them, but what was your casting thinking?
I think you said it quite eloquently. I mean, that's the thing. You don't want to do mimicry, and it's hard because when you got people like Paul McCartney and John Lennon, you want to be able to do a little bit of the voice. You want to do a little bit of the mannerisms. You want to get those things because you want to capture that. But I kept on trying to remind them that, it's about the story we're telling, and we're not doing. This film isn't a Beatles film. This is Brian's film. And whenever the Beatles are there, I want them to feel a certain way. I want it to be that they're the joy in his life because they were so much the joy. And every time they're on screen, I want it to feel like, okay, here's the success story. Here's the thing that is, keeping him going amongst all the difficult stuff. And so it was a constant conversation about making sure that we made sure we worked on certain things that, particularly with the press conference. The press conference was one where we really wanted to get it factually accurate and get some mannerisms in there and get it really. But other than that, really just sort of, treat it like you would treat any character you approach, and bring some of yourself to it as well.
And just the creative process, there's so many bold choices in this. There's the breaking of the constant breaking of the fourth wall with Brian. There's the archival footage mixed in with the real footage. Was it all in the script, or did you guys collaborate on, let's just,
No, at the very beginning, it was Brian's full story from childhood through to... and what I loved, actually, when Joe came on board, which was important, was that originally, because obviously everybody knew that Brian had died young, but Joe didn't want to make it a film about death. And I think, I cry every time I say this at the end, because as the years tick by, you're thinking, he's only got 2 years, he's only got a year, he's only got, And what I loved was that Joe wanted it to be a film about his living, not his dying. And I thought that was a real, a lovely approach to it. So we kind of went from that way after then.
Yeah, and I think the breaking of the fourth wall for me was always going, well, he would have loved to have talked about a lot of things, but he didn't have people that he could talk to at that time about particularly his experience as a gay man. And so I think the breaking of the fourth wall allowed us to be that person for him, and kind of hopefully kind of gave us a little bit of an insight into his personal experience, but also allows us, because it's such a big story, how on earth are we going to condense the entire Beatles story, really, into this film and keep it about Brian. And so it enabled us to kind of keep people aware of where we are in that story, and so obviously with the montages and things like that, be able to factually keep you up to date as well.
So it reminds me of just having seen Complete Unknown. I don't know, have you seen the
I haven't
Bob
seen it.
Dylan
Not
movie
yet,
that's out
no.
yet? It you know, it's about a very specific period, but it really just illuminates so much about the artist and the man, and this does too. And so did you get a script and say, no, I don't want to do the whole life?
Yeah, well,
It went through, I mean, it was...
started with the baby. I mean, there was a baby.
yeah.
And I was like,
yeah,
wait a second, a baby.
A baby. We didn't see Queenie giving birth or anything. I mean, that would have been too much. But no, I mean, it was... The thing is, obviously, in the beginning, the idea was that we would tell at this very crucial period. I mean, it feels like he got in so much in that time. I mean, who does that much in that period of 7 years? It's insane.
At 32,
at that
20s,
age,
you
yeah.
know.
I mean, exactly. Yeah. So I think that, I mean, look, when you're making a film, ideas get thrown about a lot. And I have to say that I was really glad he didn't appear as a baby, and that there wasn't, as someone I think at some point suggested, a circumcision scene, which we could have, which I actually was really glad about, and all the kind of connections people would make about him being gay, and I was like, no. So I'm glad that didn't happen.
So watching it, I've seen it a few times now, and you managed to keep the tone of it. I mean, it's a very, very dark rock and roll story of someone who spirals into, drugs for lots of reasons and dies of an overdose, but you keep the joy in it, and you also keep his elegance and his optimism in it. I'm just very interested, as a writer and a director, how did you navigate those two ideas?
Well, I mean, for me, it was very much based on what I'd heard about people who had actually known Brian and like loved him and worked with him. The thing that came back from them always was how lovely and generous he was as a person. And I think I just felt that the drugs, he wasn't. You could easily do a drug film where it feels like it's about that and it's about substance abuse. But the thing is, he was doing it because he was working so hard. It wasn't the same type of thing that you'd get from, I don't know, a Darren Aronofsky. It was like it's not that story. And I really wanted it to be a celebration of Brian and his life, and without being shy of what it was like to be a gay man at that time and the reasons why he ended up being addicted to what he was addicted to. So it was always a balance, and always trying to find that. That's always a thing, and it was particularly in the edit as well. But I did want it to have a sense of joy, because I don't see many films that do that very often.
But you really capture that. And just on behalf of Jewish mothers everywhere, I would like to say I love to see a very positive, supportive, non-guilt-inducing Jewish mother.
She was amazing.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Beautifully
was.
done, but amazingly portrayed as well.
Yeah, and Queenie, of course, she knew a lot. She read a lot about homosexuality, and that she adored Brian and took great pride in him. But she did understand in a way that obviously Harry, because he was worried about. I mean, they were a well-known family in Liverpool, really well-known, and the reputation, as you say, of the family and everything. Whereas for Brian, obviously, trying to balance those two things of being an honourable son and at the same time, I mean, he was famously engaged to be married to someone in the community who, and in fact, obviously, people were putting notes into her coats when she went to parties saying that your boyfriend is queer. And I mean, the idea that this was all going on in the community, that was a small, tight Jewish Liverpool community. So he had to kind of coordinate all of that, and that's hard when you're young.
Yeah. What is the trajectory of this film now? I know every Jewish film festival in the world is like, we have to get Midas Man. I know that. But is it also because you're watching it and it has such an LGBTQ theme, and just the rock, it is so reflective of such an iconic piece of world culture, the Beatles. Like, what kind of festival distribution plan are you guys working on? Or where's the film going, I guess?
Okay, so I mean, at the minute, yeah, we've got some more festivals coming up, which is really exciting. And I mean, in the UK, it was on Amazon, but over here, the plan is it becomes available for people to buy. I wish I could tell you the website. I haven't got the website address. I think it's midasman.com, but I need to check that. But it will be available online, and people will be able to share that and kind of, and spread the word of the film so that people can buy and own it online. I'm sure there will be other distribution methods later down the line, but that's like going to be the first port to call. And I know there's going to be some theatrical stuff, I think, in Florida. I should probably know more.
Warm.
But I don't. I need more details.
So, and how did Jay Leno end up in this movie?
He begged to be in it.
Did he? I mean, how did he called you relentlessly?
That's not quite true. But hey, I mean, it's great to have those cameos in a film like that.
But,
and I mean, what an iconic figure for him to portray.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
Huge Beatles fan, I think.
So, a huge Beatles fan. Well, it's such an interesting mix of people at least that aren't familiar to an American audience, and then Emily, then movie stars. So
yeah, it's a lovely cast, and I think that I mean, the cast of characters it was always such a wonderful ensemble, and we got, I mean, even Eddie Izzard coming in for a scene. It was just everybody was so generous and lovely to come in.
So
it was wonderful.
Well, I see that we have one more question. We have time for one more question. What's your next project?
Well, it depends on who finances it, but I have a script about Noel Coward, the English playwright, and it's about his early life and him, another gay man who in the past having to learn how to be gay when he was between the ages of 15 to 24 when he puts on his first play. So.
And your next project?
Tell me. No, I mean, I'm working on Vivian Westwood, Malcolm McLaren, but the love story between them. That's something that we're looking at. And also Brian actually was partly tied in with it was called the Ghost Tour, which was when they brought the Motown artists to Britain in '65. They were completely unknown as a performers. Stevie Wonder was 14 when he came to Britain, and they performed in halls and nobody turned up to see them. So you had the Supremes and Stevie Wonder all performing in places like Blackpool, Motown songs, but they couldn't. In the end, they had to add a white British band to get people to turn up. But it's an amazing, and it's over here, of course, it was before civil rights. So they were having a totally different experience in the UK. So I love that story, history.
So, there you go. So, well, thank you again for such a beautiful movie.
Thank you.
Okay.